Hey, good morning, and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club for the month of August. It's August, yeah. I always lose track, And it's 2024. That always drives me nuts. Hey, look, we've got such a good book for you today. It is Brittle Joints, and we are really, really lucky to be joined here live in studio with Maria Sweeney.
Hi, thank you guys so much.
Yeah. Give some applause.
Yay!
Yay! There are actually people here. Okay. Showmanship, right? Hi, Maria.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, it's my absolute pleasure. Like I said, this was a really fantastic book. It's it's powerful and it's scary in places, but also like it's fundamentally hopeful. And that was the thing that I liked the best about it, and it really touched us all, the staff all votes on the book, so everybody loved it. You're awesome. I always start the interview with the same question. I really like this question. I think it kind of gets to why we have a graphic novel of the month club, and it's why comics, right? Of all the things that you could be doing, the ways you can express yourself, what is it about comics? And I want to ask particularly in your case, because comics are so labor intensive and they're hard on the healthiest person, back problems, wrist problems. So I'm sort of amazed that you're putting yourself through this in your position. I mean, does that make sense as a question?
Does,
yeah.
But I also am like, I don't feel like I'm putting myself through it. It feels like it comes out.
Yeah.
Like it is has to come out.
Yeah.
Why comics? I know that in the book I talk a little bit about Asterios Polyp and David Mazzucchelli's work, and I think that's what I think of because I think of comics being so limitless. You are doing both real things that have happened to you, and then you're also conceptualizing your feelings. You're able to do a lot more to me than a film can. And in terms of why, because I was already drawing. I was already an illustrator. And I think the hardest labor for me was actually probably the writing. The art was very easy, not easy. It was a long time, but the writing, because I felt like I didn't have a lot to say. I was kind of like, it's all expressed in the pictures. And while I do think there is a lot of strength in the pauses of the book, one of my biggest challenges that I had to put myself through is like expressing my feelings in words. Yeah. And believing that people want to read that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they do.
Yeah, but if you don't know in your brain.
Sure. No, I know. Did you have an editor at an early point? Like what was the process as you were creating the book?
I started dipping into comics in senior year of college.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of in the book there's what I call like the one hitters.
Yeah.
So they're just like one-page comics. That's how I started because that was really digestible. I was submitting those to DC Magic Bullet newspaper, which is like a free comics that they disperse through the tri-state area. And so and it was always open theme. So I would do whatever was the one pages in there. I would do that and submit it. And so I feel like approaching it from smaller sections made it easier.
Sure.
But ultimately, the writing felt like I needed to like an editor needed to say like there's more that you could be, what do you feel in this, which is it's giving therapy, but it is. They're like, what do you feel in this moment? You're not telling me. I see parts of it. In terms of an editor early on, I had friends look at it, but I was really private. I worked on it without really posting on social media about it. I think that push of being like I have to show what I'm working on double down on these vignettes and expand your sense of time and break up the way, not put it in a chronological order, put your adoptive story towards the end, the way you actually process it. So the editor made something that was already in me come out.
No, that's great. I want to let's talk about, let's put a pin in that. We'll talk about the book and I want to ask about your schooling for, so you went and you studied illustration but not comics at all.
No. Back in, it wasn't that long ago, but when I graduated in 2016, I went to school in Moore College Art in Philly. It was illustration and fashion design were the big moneymaker choices for the school. And I remember I was the one that was like, I want to do comics for my junior and senior thesis. And none of my teachers had any experience in it. I had somebody else wrote the comic at that time, and I was collaborating with them, and I was drawing it. And that was something that my teachers were kind of critical of. They were like, why don't you write it? And at the time, I was like, well, also I have like a lot of other things going on and health issues and blah, blah, blah. But if I put that part aside, you being the comic artist and someone else writing it is also a very normal approach and relationship. And so I remember trying to explain that to them, like, I don't feel ready to write my own comic. It's already hard enough to take a script and internalize it and picture it and digest it and produce it. That's a lot of practice for me. And I felt like they couldn't see the value in the way I was doing it, and breaking up that workload. And then while they were also being, and I love them, being critical while also providing very little suggestion on how to create the comics.
Right.
A lot of them would be like, what if this page was actually just one illustration? Well, that's an illustration. That's not a comic, you know? And
I mean, it can be.
It can.
But
it was.
Yeah.
And I have that. I love that I'm able to blend my background in illustration and my studies as a traditional classical artist.
Yeah.
But I had to really be like, no, this requires panels and dialogue.
Yeah.
And so now that I've graduated, comics has really blown up. I started, I'm just kidding. But I was on the cusp of a lot of people like experimenting with it. This is back when like, so no pandemic, right? And we were all doing comic events, local events, zine events. And I think that my teachers just were not in the alternative. I keep saying reading alternative, and I see it in my face. I'm like, they weren't there yet.
Right.
So my schooling helped me on a technical level, but I felt like I was kind of alone in the comics realm. And now everyone's doing comics and illustration.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, most of the people that I speak to for the club, like actually went to comic school, right? You know, they went to a program. They went to SCAD. They went to the program in New York. You know, they went to CCA So
interesting.
And they have such a different experience than people who are sort of the generation before them, because they have stories like you, right? The generation before them is, well, I went to normal illustration school and nobody knew what I was talking about at all, and they, you know. They turned their nose up at the idea of doing comics because it's not a legitimate art form. But all the ones who went to comic schools all had teachers who were like, no, this is totally legitimate. This is exactly what you should be doing. So it's interesting that as little as 8 years ago, you were having an experience like that.
And I'm right on the edge of it.
If
I had graduated maybe 3 years later, I would have had inundated with Comic-Con comics. You know. Yeah, absolutely.
And so you were doing zines on the regular? Is that what I picked up from that?
Yeah. So one of my favorite festivals I did twice was Locust Moon Comics Festival. And that I loved because they had small creators, which I was, and I still am, and much larger creators. I don't know if you know Dean Hasfield.
Sure, of course, yeah.
He's really nice. And
he really is,
very sweet. So, but that one of my first events, I sold maybe like under $100, like, which is so good to me. Like I need my table back. But the after party combined these like kind of, you know, top creators and these, you know, indie, very, very indie artists, you know, literally still in school. And we're like partying together, we're drinking together, we're drawing together. And They were looking at my zines, and I really felt like there's a comics community smoking a joint out back.
Yeah.
The comics community felt so alive.
Sure.
I do think the pandemic took a big toll on separating all creative industries.
Sure.
But yeah, I was slinging zines.
Yeah.
And then later on, I started making zines about disability related topics. So
at first you weren't. That was kind of what I was.
You're right. At first, it was just like little poetic little zines.
Okay.
Very, very illustrative. I was still kind of like being like, I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
Now I know I am. I see it.
Yeah.
But for most up until like it was very recently, it's hard to be like I'm an author because like my degree is in illustration.
Sure.
But
it doesn't mean anything necessarily.
It means literally nothing. Yeah. No, not at all. But I think the zines, they were more experiments on like putting words down. Yeah. You know. And
we're getting that practice.
Yeah, and then also it's very meditative making a zine. I'm sure you know the way you got to take your 8.5 by 11. You score the middle and you fold it in the eight pages. Like doing that again and again and again has a real you feel really connected then when somebody buys that. Yeah. You know, I'm very connected that people buy this, but I did not format it to print it. Yeah. Having something that I like touched and got paper cuts over. Feels really cool. Yeah.
What were the first comics that you remember reading? Not necessarily the first thing that you read, but like the first thing that stuck in your head that made you go, "Oh, comics." Was it a serious follow-up, or okay?
I would say that, but I was also reading a manga by Taiyo Matsumoto. I don't know if you have that here, but it's about the series is called Sunny, and it's about and it's about but I'll say for you guys, it's about like these kids that are in a home, like a foster home, and they play in like an old car, and they have this really big imagination, and there are a lot of kids, and their parents get involved with them in and out, but more so the paneling is it's slice of life. It's a slow progression of the emotions of these children. You really see the pain in these kids. And also the way he did his paneling, Taiyo, unless he wants to go Mr. Matsumoto, but he like had like a loose approach to the paneling that inspired me directly. Seeing instead of the harsh straight lines. Sure. And it's actually a lot harder to draw the lines that way, loose. I draw it again and again and again, so it's like the perfect type of looseness. Right. You know, right. But I think, his paneling and then Mazzucchelli's
preciseness.
Yeah, preciseness. They're very different. His is absolutely straight lines. But Mazzucchelli approached concepts. So like the kids, they're not actually having huge concept stuff because they're kids. And so I really like that on their level look, but then with Mazzucchelli, we are actually outside of his brain a lot of the story. Sure. And so I think the combination of those two approaches to comics helped me blend my sense. Yeah.
Mysterious Polyp is such a fantastic book from a craft standpoint, just in terms of how he uses color, how he uses distinctive fonts like for math. It is like math. It really is.
I'm with my partner who likes math. It's like math. It's very analytical. The topic is analytical. Isn't he like an architect, right? That's his role. I
mean, he teaches it.
He teaches in the story.
He teaches comics at in New York. What's this program?
Oh no, I meant the character. The character is like
the character. Yes, the character is an architect. Yeah.
So it's very. His mind
is Kelly himself.
No. He might as well be though. He might as well be
the
way he drew that. But those two stories really stick out to me. And then I was also just reading a handful of zines. Of like for my friends. So all of that together, those two stick out for me.
Yeah. So it's kind of amazing to have that the Mazzucchelli book as your breakthrough reading thing, just because it's such an advanced text, right? Like really it's not easy. A lot of times like people are like, I saw Love and Rockets.
So good.
Easy to read, right? Like you don't have to like wrestle with it, but you
No.
kind of have to wrestle with something like Mysterious Polyp.
Yeah, I read it 3 times.
Yeah.
I read it the first time and then I read it quickly again.
Yeah.
I think that also was new to me. Being like, comics are, and I mean this very kindly, comics are smart. They're full of smart people. And I was also like introduced to it still with like little zines as well. Some of them are like about, like one zine I remember was like a guy talking about all the beer he would drink.
Right.
You know, so which is really cute. And I enjoyed seeing that. But yeah, this one was heavy. And then soon after I read Habibi. Yeah. Which is also very heavy text. And I think
very dense text.
Extremely dense. That
300-400 pages.
Oh yeah, that took me months to go through. And I think my work is not at all that level of complexity, but it was the sense of like, you can tackle. I had an accent. You can tackle. You can tackle really, really big concepts and emotions. And sometimes, like with a Mysterious Polyp, I'm not going to reveal the ending, but sometimes it's like you're discontent. Sometimes stories end and you are not feeling like everything tied up right. And that's part of like life. And it's like a reminder that comics are not movies. You know? Those are the books that stick out to me.
No, that's fascinating. And so were you then like, I've got to do something at this level, or no?
I do think though, as I got to the later stages, I was working on this when till. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to.
No, you
interact with the crowd.
Interact with the crowd. Do crowd work, you know.
Baby, when do you?
You finished this in like March? No, February. It was by your birthday. I remember.
Yeah, I was still, because I was dealing with housing insecurity.
Sure.
Thank you guys. But I was dealing with housing insecurity before this, and working on the book Homeless. And so by the time I got, like, it was like the last few pages, my computer had broken, so I had to finish her up on an iPad.
Wow.
I lost a lot of files, so I had to redo pages.
Wow.
And so in February, I was redoing some of the pages, and I took that opportunity to expand a few things. So I was like, things that at one part where I was talking about like the paperwork of like feeling like, why am I just like subject to other people's bureaucracy? I feel like I'm just like words on a screen for them. That was something I put in later. And so I think I developed more complex thoughts. I became smarter in terms of how to relate my experience into comics as the time went on. And I also got more confident. So something like, and that's just one page, but that page to me says a lot. And it's a very conceptual page. Like obviously in the page I'm describing, I'm like laying in all these papers. I'm not literally laying in papers, but that was something I don't think I would have really thought of or even allowed myself to imagine.
Comics are like a muscle. Well, any art form is, but comics in particular, the more you do comics, the more you build up the tone and the more you're able to tackle things in different ways that are more expressive or more in depth or more even the opposite of that, and yet revealing the truth. That's one of the things I love about comics, is that you don't need to be literal to literally show the thing that you're thinking.
That was a struggle. That was something that my editor, not often, but like would be like, you don't need to actually say this part. I see it. And I think, that was definitely a challenge. But was it as complex? Like, did I look at other stuff? No. But it got, also the more comics you read, this is like with anything, but the more comics you read, the better writer you are. And that's something I had to also remind myself, like, you should read more comics.
Everybody should read more comics.
Everybody should do it.
All of the time.
But if you're going to be writing it, you have to read it. And so that was something that I started reading more comics again as I was living like back in Jersey for a while.
Are you kind of limiting yourself, but like to the alternative genre, or
Although I do love looking at think I love Mobius.
Uh-huh.
You know, like his work is so beautiful. Obviously, it's not really a cape comic. It's very philosophical. And I don't even care that much about the philosophy of it, to be honest. The art is so expansive and beautiful. And so that's an older one that I would look at. But I would say, yeah, like, it's so fun to be like looking at this behind you and see people that I've either met or that I have looked at and low key been like, I hope I reach success.
Right.
This happening.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
And it is.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so I would say I definitely I read a lot within my group. But also I do read some like I mentioned, the slice of life manga. I'm not as into like whatever the equivalent of like Cape Comics would be for manga,
right?
Where it's like more boyish, like shonen and stuff.
Akira and things like
Akira.
that.
Although I like Akira too, but
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Also very good. So I'm like, I do like those, but no, I think I'm also like women centered. It's really cool. I loved reading Jennifer Hayden's Story of My Tits, you know, things like that.
Probably behind us here somewhere.
Better be. No,
this is
the medical.
The women's.
Yeah,
voices
I see Emil Ferris. That was so good. She's so cool. She's working on another one. But yeah, I think I stuck within my group a lot, and not for any like particular choice, just because that's when I wanted to read.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. You know,
Absolutely.
I always love to hear, because everybody's journey is a little bit different, and the way that they approach comics is a little different. So you were doing the 1-page bits in here as to try and get in the local newspaper. Was it like an alt weekly or something like that?
Yeah. Or it was monthly. It was
right, but
same thing.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
there's not really alt weeklies anymore. There used to be.
Yes, that was so great.
Yeah.
But it was exactly, and they would send me the newspaper on my copy.
Yeah.
You know, and I did that for years.
Yeah.
And
was it tabloid size? Yeah.
Yeah, is that correct?
That's tabloid size.
Yes, you're right. I'm like, that sounds right.
Yeah.
You would open it,
and
it would be big.
Right.
It was
in color or
black and white.
Okay.
But I would draw mine often in color for myself.
Okay, so it would gray tone when they
Yes,
printed it.
and they often asked me. The first time I sent it in color, and they're like, "This is going to be in color." And low key, the cover gets to be in color. So I was hoping one day maybe I'd get the cover. But that's okay. And also people read it, and I would get not many, but like people would message me and be like, "I saw your comic in the DC Comics, you know, free newspaper." That's big to me. And it also gave me a lot of confidence. Like, I'm a comic artist. They ask me every month. Not lately. I think they're closed right now, but like they would ask me every month to participate. And they would put it out. So rewarding. Yeah. And then I would expand from making a 1-page comic for them to being like, maybe I'll tell a story in 2 pages. Ooh, getting crazy, you know. And that's then I felt confident enough to do like a 6-page story. And following up.
Did you just curious, when you started doing, say, a 6-page story, did you start thinking about how pagination works, how when you're at the, you know, on the bottom corner, you should have something that
kills me, Brian.
That
kills me. Oh my God, it's so stressful. By the time, because of course I was like a dodo bird, and I have like very uneven. It's like single pages.
Right.
I want it like that. Spread. I want it to open like a spread. And so, thankfully, when you get published, the designer takes care of that.
Sure.
So I didn't know that.
Sure.
So I was very worried about it, and I tell that to my publisher. Her name is Liz. And she was like, "Oh, don't worry about that. We'll take care of it." Do you know I do have to write all the text. Like, I wrote all the text. The text is my handwriting, but they edit the text for me. That's crazy, you know? Because when you self-publish, you do everything. You do everything. You're the colorist. You're the typist. You are the marketer. Obviously, the writer, illustrator, cover artist, formatter, printer. And so having all of that taken off my back, it felt like luxury. You know, and it allowed me to also feel like a sense of like reward. You know, like I earned the ability to take it easy, even though I wasn't taking it easy.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you start off with single pages, then you double, then you little more, and now
Really?
you have a whole book,
Yeah.
right? Like it paid off at the end, right? You know,
It's real.
it's real. It's 140, 150 some odd pages.
It does make me feel like after this, even though I don't really want to write anything about myself, it does feel like I will probably not approach the next book as a vignette.
Right.
And it will be one cohesive story. And not for any reason like because people said I should or shouldn't, but more so like I did that. And now I have that, you know, and also when I was reading comics, I was reading a lot of vignette comics.
Right.
Too. So I think that was something that I felt a little defensive about when I had publishers be like, we don't want it like that. I was like, but you did because I read it from you. What changed? I have no idea. But I still feel really content with it presented this way. Yeah.
I mean, it's also partly how the market changes over time.
This took 10 years, so
exactly.
I guess stuff changed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to do a page?
Depends on the page.
Sure, of course. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
No, of course. But if we're talking like an average page. I'm trying, really trying
any answer is good. It's not. There's no wrong answer there.
That's fair. I probably like 2 days.
Okay.
2 days to get, but the motors are running, and I'm like thinking about the pages long before I have to draw.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would say it only takes me 2 days because I've spent many days.
Yeah.
Thinking about how I'll present it.
Is that 2 days?
Excluding looking for references.
But is it 2 days to completely finish the page, color, etc., or are you just talking the layout, the design?
Oh, the layout and design.
Yeah.
Probably a week. For,
pencil, ink, basically.
So for the whole drawing, probably like a week.
Yeah.
Probably like a week, like 5. I would say.
Okay.
I would say if I'm in a rush, I could get a full page that looks like that in 5 days.
Yeah.
And that's. Like really, really having the idea is great in my head. Like I know the vision, but I also think I go back to pages and redo them. And
how often?
Because the first time this was self-published, the first 3 vignettes, I went back and redid a good portion of that. I felt like I had aged a little bit.
Sure.
And in the drawings and the way I was drawing myself now wasn't. Even though it's very similar, a little more bags under the eyes, you know, and I also kind of expanded some of the concepts a little bit, like the story about cannabis. I felt like that had a little bit of disorganization, so that was something that I worked on, and that took, you know, like probably 2 weeks for me to kind of delete some pages, redraw it. But it's a huge labor. But also there are some pages, like if it's a spread and it's one illustration and I don't have to do a bunch of panels, that might just take actually 2 days. Right. You know, but because each panel is almost like a mini drawing, like I zoom in, I draw it like a whole illustration. It could take a whole week. Yeah.
I'm amazed that you got this book done, given what you said about being homeless at one point during it. Things in the book where you're dealing with your health, where you're dealing with being on government support, and yet you still managed to get this done in a thoughtful, I'm just really impressed with it because of those challenges even more. Does that?
Absolutely. I think you should. No, just kidding. I agree. No, that it sucked.
Yeah.
It still sucks to have that happen and to be picking up the mess of that and still trying to access my belongings and all of these things. One thing I do want to share the story about is Hart and their partner Harlow, who's not here, but I love him so much. They used to live, if you don't mind sharing, consent. They were there in Philly when I was self-publishing this, slinging comics by myself, the first iteration. And Harlow's also a wheelchair user and has a similar disability as me. And they came up with Hart and their cane. And I just saw them and I saw like my people. I saw someone with a cane, and I'm like, I'm disabled. We're both crippled. I love this. And I don't remember doing it, but apparently I got up and gave them a big hug, and they bought my comic, and we became friends. And that was like 7 years ago. And then and they sought out the event because I was there.
Oh,
and
nice.
they wanted to buy this comic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now I'm here, and it's the two of them have helped move me out of houselessness.
Yeah.
And now I'm staying with them.
That's really
I'm
beautiful.
having this whole life here.
Good on you.
I know, right? I know. But it's more so like they saw this comic when it was just, I wouldn't say it wasn't nothing, but it was just on my own.
Proto comic.
Yeah, it was exactly. The beta comic. And
Mm-hmm.
to see them watch the process,
Mhm.
help ensure that I'm housed
Yeah.
so that I could finish this project. And now they're holding the finished result.
Yeah.
It's like this cycle of community care and
Yeah.
disability care that that this book, that because I wrote this book, these people are in my life.
Yeah.
That's just like the truth of it.
Sure.
I don't think we would have met because you wouldn't have seen it. And that's like, I can't cry now. That's like really powerful.
Yeah.
That's
Very much so.
Life-saving
Yeah.
coincidences. And also effort.
Yeah.
So I think that realization, like, it's connected to being like my comics and my houselessness
Mm-hmm.
is connected to other people's care
Mm-hmm.
about my story.
Mm-hmm.
So because they read my story,
Mm-hmm.
they care about me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm protected.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Making art can save you.
Yeah.
In many ways, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, how did it go from being pages that you were doing for this free newspaper to someone going, let's make a book? Were you shopping it around? Did people see it at shows and go, hey, there's something here, we want to make more of it? Like what was the path there? I'm assuming you didn't have an agent.
No, I do now.
Yeah.
Her name's Meg. She's great.
Nice.
It's hard to remember, like, what I think, because I was doing the collaborative comics
Mhm.
I was doing what we called interrupt comics, the
Mhm.
person that was writing it and me. That was already a little bit of confidence that I can illustrate something longer.
Mhm.
I find it like very amateur work now, and that's fine. It was learning experience. But I think because I was doing that, and then I was doing so I did that, and then I did my own comic, 1 pages.
Mhm.
I kind of was like, you can do it
Mm-hmm.
about yourself now.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the same thing, write 20 pages at a time for one story, or maybe they're closer to 15.
Mhm.
And so I think it was, nobody really said anything. If anything, maybe my friends or the people in my life were like, you should, maybe they did,
Mhm.
but it's hard for me to, I think I really did do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a moment that somebody was like, this is something you should do. I think I was like I was already gearing up inside to do it
Mhm.
myself. And then the first story I wrote for the comic was about losing the feeling in my left hand, which is still really upsetting for me. It will always be. And I think because that happened very suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
it also, in some odd way, felt like it was dramatic enough to be a story.
Sure.
You know, it felt like it was shocking enough
Mm-hmm.
for both me.
Mm-hmm.
I had really strong feelings about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I felt like I could have a interesting way of visualizing the numbness through color.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see the numbness through color. And also, like, when I said to, like, the people in my life, like, hey, I wonder if this is a story.
Right.
So it was me that was saying, they were like, you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a story.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there is also this self-imposed doubt of feeling like when you first get into comics about yourself, feeling like I don't have anything worthy enough to talk about. These stories are not stories. That was a big part for me in the beginning, feeling like these are not real stories.
Right.
These are just thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's like, if somebody can make a little comic about the beer they drink.
Mm-hmm.
That's really simple thoughts,
Sure.
and that's worth writing down.
Sure.
Why can I not write the thoughts about, involving, or like, I remember talking to my neighbor in Ohio, because the story I wrote about the rice, where I'm playing with rice as a physical therapy exercise. I remember they work in psychology, so we were all having all these thoughts and talks and sitting in the garden, and they were like, you should write a story about that. And I go, that's not a story. I'm just telling you about it.
But but it is a story.
When you're still doubting, like you're.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Right?
I totally hear what you're saying. But
It
again,
is.
when you look at autobiocomics, they're mostly just inconsequential things that are happening, and people are just putting it down on. Joe Matt's writing stories about how he masturbates all the time.
So good,
right?
So good.
So yeah.
And I think
that's not a story, but of course it's a story.
And I think that's I have many double standards for myself.
Sure.
Of feeling like you can write a story about absolutely nothing, and that's so worth it. Me, I need to have a concept. I need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Sure.
And that's something I was able to sort of break free from.
Yeah.
There's no end to the story. There's no resolution.
Yeah.
That about the rice on my hand.
Right. Well, it's like life, though. There's generally not resolution in life.
And that felt like I had to accept that.
Yeah.
I had to accept that readers are okay, that there's nothing
of the moment and of the vignette. It's important. Yeah.
And I think that's why I like the vignettes, because in a full thing, I think people would have wanted me to tie things up.
Sure.
And I didn't feel like I could do that.
Yeah. So again, how did it become how did you find the publisher?
Okay. That's a fun story. That's Liz. Her name's Liz Francis. Yep. She has a background working with Scholastic. She actually sought me out when I had self-published the first iteration. And she found me at a comics festival. I don't remember which one. And approached me, and she had just started Street Noise Books, her publishing house. And honestly, I wasn't ready to give my work up yet.
Sure.
I also didn't really know this person. And so, and she really wanted it. She really wanted it. And I think I knew that it was only these 3 stories, and I knew there was more in me, and I didn't really want it to be affected by anything. And I also knew that I had like health issues and like dealing with fractures. And so I was hesitant to commit to, somebody's expectations of what I needed to do. So she messaged me after and was like, I would really love to, have Brittle Joints and publish it. And I told her no at first. I told her that I wasn't ready, and that I'm still sort of exploring the self-publishing route.
Sure.
I also was interested in pitching it to other publishers at the time, which I feel guilty about now because it worked out so well.
Sure.
But at the time, I was like, that's also my right to just sort of see what's out there.
It absolutely is. And no publisher will ever actually think badly about it.
And she didn't. Yeah, she was that was back in like 2017, 2018. I was only maybe 2 years out of school, still unemployed, living in a basement. And so home was hard. So I also think that many people thought I had a little bit more of a stable life than I did, like a studio or like a workspace or like money or anything. And I didn't have that. So I said no. And then I finished writing it after that. I finished 5 more stories or so. And then Carl Stevens, do you know Carl? Yeah, I'm like, everybody. I said
most everybody.
You do, but yeah.
You can stump me.
Okay.
But yeah.
But Carl is pretty much my mentor.
Nice.
I met him at a comics festival, of course. He's really stoic in person. But I remember being like, can I give you a hug? Like, Carl Stevens' work is really illustrative. It's like oil painting-esque. We use watercolor too. It also, I should have mentioned it, but that was also an inspiration of slice of life comics that are deeply illustrative and look realistic. And so I remember telling him that I'm like, you do work that I like, and I want to have work that looks like yours, you know, but my style. And he knew exactly what I meant. And then he and I kind of kept in contact. He gave me a couple small little commissions to help him with. That was really fun. And then when I told him, I was like, listen, and he also was always asking, like, how is this going? What's going on with that? And so when I told him, like, yeah, I'm pitching it to publishers, he goes, I think you should connect with my agent, Meg Thompson.
Nice.
And Meg Thompson is a big figure. She worked for Bill Clinton, you know, in like his private library or something. I don't know. But she's a very cool woman, lives in New York, has a hot wife, just nice dogs, just so cool. And to be under her is like really big. And so that's kind of how it happens, you know, like you it's who you know, which I both love and hate, because I am no longer able to really access too many events in person. And that can be limiting and feel like I'm missing out on things. But also I feel like I did a lot of work to connect myself before the pandemic. And so Carl put my name into Meg. Meg read my book, loved it, and took it on. And then pitched it to all the top publishers. And it was really confusing because they basically, I said, you know, Fantagraphics read it, John Quarterly read it, and they were like, we love the writing and we love the art. And I'm kind of like, okay, what else is needed? Okay, great. But they were like, but we, and they didn't say we don't like it, but they were like, we wish it wasn't a vignettes. And I disagreed. And I wasn't ready to, only one of them, I think it might have been First Second, that was like, we might take it on if you consider, which would be rewriting the whole book. Right. And taking away what is the sense of time and the fracturing of time, right? And the lens of looking at things through compartmentalizing. So I opted not to go with that. And then Meg pitched it to also to Liz. And of course Liz was like, yes. I wanted it all along. Yeah, I wanted it before. But I also felt ready now. Like it also felt like Liz had at this point published several books already. And even though I was confident in her work, I didn't want to be the first book. You know? And I don't think that it doesn't say anything about her. I just didn't want to be the first book yet. And because of that, I had more opportunity to meet other people. Liz, before I started working with her for the publication, I was invited to a panel for what's the big one in the big comics in New York?
New York Comic Con?
New York Comic Con! Yeah, it was the big one, Comic Con. Yeah, so there was a panel at the New York Public Library that Liz put together under Comic Con. So big, so cool. And I got to speak with 4 of the other published creators from her publication house. And I mean, they were so cool. Their work was so inspiring to me, and it felt good to now I'm in the family. You know, I'm with them, and I felt like I also felt like they have every right to also pioneer this publication house. That's really cool for them. And so finally, I was like, I'm ready for you. You're ready for me. She not only accepted the approach of vignettes, but got an editor that was like, I know how to make this work stronger. And she did not feel a type of way that I took my time, you know, moving into that. And also, if I had accepted her publication offer earlier, I wouldn't have had an agent, you know? And so I actually look at it as like, everybody won. You know?
No, that makes a lot of sense. So when you, at this point, if I'm with you, you've got 3 to 5 1 to 2 page stories complete. You've got another 3 to 5 stories that you've written, and then you've got to make a 160 page book. So that's a pretty big leap.
Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. We also had discussions on the content. Like, my editor and Liz, you know, asked if I would talk about like my previous relationship and dating. They asked if I would talk about, you know, my previous relationship and dating. They asked if I would talk about, like my previous relationship and dating. They asked if I would talk about my adoptive story. So some of these were not my ideas. Most of them were, but some of the stories, were like, I feel like, or actually not a good chunk, but like the other one about Castle Park Hero. So in the beginning, where I'm introduced to my first experience of disability of an adult. That was because my editor and Liz and Jisoo were like, there's nothing about your childhood. And that's also a choice. My childhood was really painful. And I don't feel prepared to draw or illustrate that in a very expansive way. But they also were right to be like, if you're going to do vignettes, we do want to see kind of like parts of you.
Sure.
In different eras.
Sure.
And that was hard to wrestle with and be like, that is kind of needed for the story. So that's also how it got larger. It's like they also were suggested concepts. There are also concepts that I denied. They were like, what?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that is, I talk about with my loved ones, but like, there's a lot in the book that people don't know about me. And I do get the sense that people, because, I was telling Katie too, like, there's an exposed nerve of telling people these really vulnerable thoughts, but also y'all don't know me. You don't know me at all. And there's a lot about my life that I did not include. And I'm curious how readers feel, if they feel like they know a lot about me.
I think so. I think that they know what you've chosen to present.
Yeah.
Right? So they've compartmentalized your life in a way of, oh, well, this is who she is. And
which is natural. That's
the boundaries of it. Yeah. But obviously you're much more than that. Same way that I'm positive that Joe Matt does not only think about masturbation. But if you read his comic books, you would literally go, that's all he ever thinks about and all he cares about. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I think, and also knowing that my publisher was like asking, like, would you talk about this and this? Makes me curious if other people are curious about those aspects of my life. And I have no desire to fulfill, like, there's also no pressure. There's been no pressure to share more than I want. But I get some people that have, especially friends who read the book, will reach out and be like, I feel like I know like a lot about you, and like you've shared so much of yourself, and all of those are true statements. And I also feel like this is but a pinch of how my feelings about disability, my experiences, and I enjoy keeping some of that private. Yeah. I
mean, we contain multitudes as a general thing, right? And there's no way that any piece of art is going to expose all of that, even if that's what the author wants to do, and nobody wants to show everything.
No, I don't.
Because some of it's not.
It's ugly or sad.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
It's through shadow work, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But that is, there are many things that I decided I didn't do family that much. I didn't do my childhood very much. I know that my Liz was like, "What about you tell us?" And I don't mean it about. She's like, "What if you tell a story about a time you were bullied?" And I was like, "That's a very long time," and I don't know how. She said as if it was a single time.
Right.
And I was like, that's 10 years, baby.
Right.
And I think that I feel in that topic, I feel both the pressure to make people feel seen in that area because it is such a painful and isolating experience to be bullied as a disabled person in childhood by the same people. But I also think I need more therapy. Before I allow people to also feel resonated by that. But that was something I felt pressure.
And you didn't have adult heroes and teachers and things like that?
That's a really good question. No, I would say K through 8. A lot of my teachers, because I went to K through 8 school. Yeah. So they were all really uneducated on disability awareness, and they often took the side of the able-bodied individuals. And No, I don't have a single teacher figure that felt safe to me in that school, which is really
Wow,
bad.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Because then I went to college,
Yeah.
and I did meet some safe
Nice.
teachers.
Nice.
And I went to high school, and I only went to high school for 2 years, and then I did do. My parents took us out, me and my sibling, and we did online high school. But the first 2 years of high school, I also was treated pretty well. The teachers were at least average, and then I made friends, and that was so it was very painful. It was not my choice to have been ripped away from the school. Still, there were no teachers that I looked up to. But then when I went to college, my teacher Jeff Dion is my mentor. I would say he's actually the only mentor. I wouldn't say I'm not close with any of the other teachers, but I respected them, and they respected me. And I developed so many good friends. But yeah, no, teachers have often let me down in a not art sense. When they're not in the art field, they let me down. Yeah.
Huh,
that's what it's sad. That's
no, I mean it is, and it's
really sad.
Yeah, it is for you specifically, but it's also in general because I always think of teachers as protecting the kids, right? Because they're the front line of that,
It's very revealing, and it's all. But I also grew up when we did not use the word disabled.
Sure.
That's a huge factor. Like,
we
used it derogatory.
Yeah.
It was a derogatory statement.
And do you think that part of this was that the teacher's own feelings about the disability? That they didn't know how to deal with it themselves?
Yeah,
and so
I think they didn't know how to deal with it. I think that, my parents were not strong figures in stepping in to be like, hey, teacher, this is what you do, and this is what you don't do. And so even though I love them very much, they did not know how to step in for that either. So then the teachers never learned. I think that people still hold really unkind views about disability. I think that they had never seen a young wheelchair user, and I think they hold really, not all of them, because there are also moments, that I could see them trying in the background. They would help me behind closed doors. They wouldn't intervene when the bullying would happen. And I think that I don't want to say it kindly. I think they really had a dislike, or if not a hatred, because I think that's too strong. I think they just really did not like it. They didn't like it. They found it burdensome. They found it an extra layer of work. And then again, we have this cognitive dissonance of disability there's no disability justice talk in this era. I'm not having that discussion with myself.
Was there even an understanding of what you were actually facing? I mean, what the little tiny amount of reading on Bruck's that I did suggested to me that there's 50 people in the world who have it. And so how do you even communicate that, right?
I don't think they ever knew the diagnosis. They knew I had brittle bones. Also, I would fracture in class and have really, really destructive and very public injuries. And that would take up the time or cancel events in the middle of the period. And I wonder if they felt like I caused now even though it was my fault, even though it's actively, sometimes kids did it to me. And they would injure me. I think that they felt like now I have to deal with a disrupted class. And without now I have 20 kids to deal with that are asking questions or pointing or laughing or whatever the hell. And I think perhaps their focus was wrong. I don't know why they were so bad. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know why they were so unkind. I really think none of them dealt with disability in their life. And I think that's also part of it. I've said this in my life before. It's you don't know until you know. And that's a really disheartening reality. Like people don't care about it till they face it, and that is what it is with disability. You know, and I think that's what I experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry
Yeah,
that happened.
We're all sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No, I know. I'm sorry if I dragged you too far down that hole. Okay.
You did it.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
believe me. I've processed a lot of it.
Yeah. And a lot of it's in the book
it's
too.
in the book.
I mean,
the
the first sections where you're a kid and you know there's a line in there just like I just want to feel normal, and it's different for you, but every kid just wants to feel normal.
Absolutely.
And every kid doesn't feel normal, and
Absolutely.
and it's got to be so much harder when you've got this additional challenge. I'm impressed. That's all. Yeah. Okay, so you signed the contract with Liz, and I mean, I'm trying to swing it back to happier things.
Oh, please. Let's talk about when I signed it.
Yeah.
When I signed it, I was really excited. I went to the doctor, and this was still in Ohio and I remember I went to the doctor and I got 4 injections in my neck, and that felt really good. I really needed it. I was so excited. So I came home and my neck was all numbed out. I was like, yes. And then I read this email that's like that they were going to publish it. So I remember feeling like really good, both physically good. I felt like my I had a job at that point. So and I was working remotely. I had my own little office. So even though I'm still really happy with everything that's happened to me now, at the time I was like, wow, baby, I'm really stable.
Right.
You know, I'm in therapy. I have this job. This is getting published. I'm getting regular like treatments for my pain. I'm getting physical therapy again. And so that felt like I had made it. And I also didn't feel like I lost it from that point either, because it did get like, you didn't lose the publication. That exists. And also just the fact that this is going to exist, you know, not to take it in a bad way, but when I die, that's still here in libraries. Can we talk about the fact that this is in libraries, accessible, free places where people can go? That's often a respite for disabled and houseless people, because we can get to the bathrooms, we can ask for help. Librarians are angels.
They sure are.
You know, and they don't get enough support. And so I actually went to the Berkeley Library and I tried to find my book, and I think somebody was reading it. Because it wasn't on the shelf.
Wow, okay. But it was in the catalog.
It was in the catalog. It was in the catalog.
Nice. Yeah.
And I remember so that's because it got published. And Liz, in relation to Liz is good friends with this man named Matthew Noe, Noe. He works at the American Library Association. And so he started, because they're friends, he like kind of put a good review for that. And like more libraries, I think, are going to take it. And that's actually one of the more rewarding things that's happened for me. I also love it to see in bookstores, especially accessible bookstores, which this is. But any place that allows my book to be so accessible, even free, is like, nobody did this for the money. I look at this wall, and even if they are making money, they didn't start thinking it was for the money. And that really holds true. So the fact that it's free in libraries and people who don't have money can read it. That's one of the most rewarding parts about actually being officially published. It's that there's a legacy behind it. It's there, and it reaches people that normally couldn't afford it. It's not a cheap book.
And that people will be able to read your story who have similar experiences and see themselves in that, and feel more empowered, and maybe some of them will read it and make their own comic. You know,
I really hope that like you shared your comic with me. You know, like that. that's so exciting for me
Yeah.
to have. I also love when people, back when I was doing more events, we would have like, let's trade comics. Oh my God, that was the best. But yeah, being published really opens doors that I couldn't dream of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being able to normalize conversations, right? So that it's not, I mean, I suspect that when you started this 2017, 2018, whatever it was, there wasn't a lot of graphic medicine out on the market.
Oh, let's talk. Graphic medicine.
And now it's,
it's an actual
it's a
subject.
whole category.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not only a whole category, it's a conference that happened in Ireland.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. Shalom. And so that was like, my last name is Sweeney. But it was that falling in line with like the topic of being like, we didn't use the word disability in a positive way, and seeing that switch. And also like that's coming from like my community taking that word back. And again, the word was actually never derogatory. The word cripple has been, and that's been something that a lot of like myself and my other like physically disabled friends, some people have really different relationships with it. I find it to be really ironic and fun. I really enjoy using that word. I've had it been used derogatorily at me,
right?
And to be able to reclaim it is fun and very punk for me. But disabled was never a slur. It never was. But we are the community's internalized ableism from like the 90s. And also I talk about it a lot, but like ugly laws preventing people who are disabled or disfigured or just not good looking to the society, if up until the 70s, were technically fined or could be put in jail.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I'm hot. Like, that's crazy. Hot people can't be outside. But
you're a cutie pie.
I know, we all are, but like disabled people are hot.
Yeah.
And this concept, so that wasn't long ago.
Yeah.
We have people right now living that had that in their timeline. And so I do think that carries, even if people don't know about it, even if people, it's kind of almost like baked into people and they don't know it. So when I use the word disabled or disability, I had to fight against people saying, you mean differently abled, you mean special. And I'm like, no, I actually mean this. And that's still something that happens often for my community. And then, I think, I think I lost sense of the question. Can you ask me a question?
No, I mean, I don't have a specific narrow question on that. It's, I think it's just how society and time changes and how you react to it. I mean, even for myself,
medicine. That's right.
Well, when I was preparing for this, I was really thinking, oh my God, I'm going to blow it somehow. I'm going to ask some sort of
that's goofy.
Like some sort of question that really exposes like my abled ignorance. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
So
no, I also think that I mean, if I think about the people in my life, the majority of people that are in my life are able-bodied.
Right.
But that's getting less and less. I'm sorry, COVID.
Exactly.
Be real.
It's not over.
No, it's not over, and it's disabling. It's the most mass disabling event that's happened globally.
Yeah.
It's still happening.
Yep.
Period. And so I think, and also everyone's wearing masks, by the way. I just want everyone to know. They're for the camera. We appreciate that.
Not us for the camera.
Not us, but that because of that, I can do this. Yeah. But that graphic medicine couldn't have come at a better time. Yeah. It did come before the pandemic. My friend Georgia Weber, I feel, is also kind of I would say a pioneer in that area with her 2 books. And when I was thinking of the connection of graphic medicine and disability as both being words that are being brought into the zeitgeist very positively. So much so, right, that now graphic medicine is like almost like saying the disability conference, essentially. Right. And graphic medicine also is really encompassing of people who maybe are a little nervous to say, I'm disabled.
Sure.
I'm always like, come into the community, call yourself. If you're dealing with a chronic illness, disabled.
Yeah.
I love it, you know, but I know that is a process. Not everyone's going to feel good with that label.
Sure.
So graphic medicine allows people this option who are having moments where they really feel like they're living an able-bodied life still.
Yeah.
And then they fall back into it, which is, of course, the reality of humanity as you get older anyway. But graphic medicine, I think, includes so many perspectives. It allows you to come in and out, whereas disabled feels a little bit more concrete and never changing.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that graphic medicine is a literal conference
Mm-hmm.
and it has awards. There's now in the different award sections for like the Ringo Awards, the Eisner, let's hope, but vote. Actually, it's just comic people that comic vote. But like that, now there's a graphic medicine category.
Yeah.
In that, and I hope I win.
I do too. Yeah, I do too.
But even if I don't, people get to be in that.
Yeah.
I would have never predicted that as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it helps normalize things. It you know, and to what you were saying earlier, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily any different than say coming out.
Absolutely.
Right? There's been societal stigmas about being anything other than completely perfectly heteronormative, what society thinks that you should be, and that doesn't seem like you have to be like that anymore in this world.
Period.
You know, it's funny as you know, as a 50-something white man, straight white man, to see how things change and to watch my peers not be able to change, and to see my own failures to change sometimes too.
How does that feel on a large level to see an expansiveness of love?
Yeah, no, that to me is beautiful.
Not just being gay, but expansiveness in self-love, of telling hard, either maybe ugly stories about yourself or painful stories. How do you feel as a reader seeing your colleagues
I want to see
expand
it.
their brains like that?
I want to see it because it expands my brain too. I mean, reading things, you know, I mean, this is slightly different, but things like Persepolis or Mouse changed the way that I thought about the world in general. You know, gave me ideas and concepts that I never would have had. I feel the same way about this. I would never have thought about your perspective, and it gives me, I don't want to say more sympathy because that,
I know you're,
you know, but like I feel like I can engage in it better, and that I understand you better as a human being, even though this isn't you, right?
But
it is, right? But you know, it's not all that you are, I guess, is the thing. And I think that's the next thing that people have to figure out is that people can be more than one thing, right? You know, but it's why I live in San Francisco, for example, right? I live in San Francisco because this is a multicultural city.
Yeah.
This is a multi-gendered, multi-sexual city.
Yes.
And all these things are good and valid, and they're not for me necessarily, but
you get to enjoy.
But I get to see it, and it's good. I like having a store that's inclusive to everyone. That we have comics for literally any
everyone.
person. You know, people always ask me like, "Oh yeah, so who shops at your comic shop?"
Everyone.
You know, and I'm like, humans.
Anyone.
What do you mean people do?
Just just comic heads.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be, right? Like,
That's
I mean, 20 years ago, it was pretty much just white guys. It was pretty much. And it kind of did, no, and
really
that we've been able to change that, and you know, it's a powerful, wonderful thing. I think.
I have this is more of how do you feel?
Please interview me,
Brian. What is your perspective on how San Francisco? And I only know this because I had a conversation with another wheelchair user who lives in San Francisco, and he was saying same thing. We're both queer. They're like, I love being gay. I love the vibrancy. I love the there's different, you know, families. San Francisco is so inaccessible. That is the one thing. I don't find this, and I haven't been too explored in it, but they're wheelchair users, so I'm getting their perspective.
Right.
They were like, I find it so ironic that San Francisco is known for being all of these things, a haven for all of these people, but just by the nature of its geography and the way its housing is set up, I don't think it is very accessible. I don't think it's very inclusionary of the disabled community. I think it's been up to individual establishments, and as a whole, the houses are so beautiful, and I don't see any that's accessible to me.
Yeah. I guess broadly I would.
What do you feel about that?
I would say, and obviously my viewpoint is not the same as when you've got to negotiate the barriers, right?
I don't think it's that accessible for able-bodied people. Is my thought.
Well, I mean, with the hills, yeah, but that's San Francisco. I mean, it's in fact, I often say that people sometimes won't go more than one hill away from where they live, because it's just too much effort to. That place is 2 hills over. No, I'm not doing that.
So funny. That's a big barrier for me, to be honest. Though.
Yeah.
Even though that's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
Who did that? I don't know.
Well, yeah, God did that part.
Exactly. Who did that? The Lord. But that is something that I want to be here as well. And I hear that from my friend that's like, I live here and I got to go up 6 flights of stairs with my wheelchair. Sure. So I'm curious.
Yeah. I do think in terms of businesses, it looks to me, but again, my eye's not tuned to it correctly. Yeah. But it looks to me like most people are very conscious of ADA, and very conscious of what they need to have happen. Certainly, the city itself is, putting in the ramps at every corner now, and they're, and they look to me like they're good with the little bumpy things on them, so that you don't slide, etc. So I see more and more of that happening broadly, but I don't know how that it actually impacts, right? Like, if you want to take the underground, you've got to get into an elevator, and half the time those elevators are filled with piss.
And they don't always work.
And they don't always work.
That's
and and I wouldn't even imagine how that would be a challenge.
Bad. But on that end, I'm staying in Berkeley, and that is the disability hub.
Right.
Berkeley has so much history, and I won't go in, but it's literally rooted in the disability activism movement. But so I think that this is so while I was critical of SF more on just a conversational part, the West Coast and both SF and Berkeley and Oakland has been so much more accessible to me than I'm sure from the East Coast.
Sure.
I have a power wheelchair now, and I would have never been able to use my power wheelchair in New York.
Yeah.
Every other step would have been disruptive.
Yeah.
And so that's been so life-changing for me. I go on my own walks. I get my own groceries. I get my own prescriptions.
Yeah.
I went and took myself to get X-rays.
Yeah.
Because the roads are maintained.
Yeah.
They help do that, by the way.
Yeah. There's tons of places in this country where they don't have sidewalks. There's not anything.
I know.
And I see this as a pedestrian.
Yeah,
I don't drive. I don't know how to drive. I can't get from.
Do you not drive?
I do not. I grew up in Brooklyn.
I don't drive either.
I grew up in Brooklyn, and then I moved to San Francisco. What the hell do I need to know how to drive for?
Nobody I know from New York drives. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, but I'll go to I visited my mom in North Carolina, and you can't get from one place to another unless you get into a car. Yep. You literally cannot. They do not have sidewalks in big parts of a town that's actually a town. There's not sidewalks. What?
It kills you.
Yeah, and it's got to be 1,000 times worse for you then.
I've been homebound for many situations. I've been homebound for all kinds of. This is the first time. I've ever had the experience of getting anything for myself. Yeah.
Have the other parts of things changed for the better for you, in terms of, say, the Affordable Care Act, making health care more accessible and theoretically more affordable?
I wouldn't say it directly affects me.
Okay.
I'm on Medicare.
Okay.
Which I'm on a rare insurance.
Sure.
So I was very fortunate to get Medicaid. And that's not Medicaid,
Yeah.
it's Medicare.
Mhm.
However, it's extremely expensive and
Yeah.
a huge financial burden.
Yeah.
So I do think the Affordable Care Act has helped my disabled comrades
Mhm.
who don't have the ability to get on Medicare. It's ironically that, but I was recently denied disability.
Wow. Really?
Let's just sit with that.
Huh.
And I'm in the reconsideration process.
Wow.
But I've been on disability before
Uh-huh.
for the same genetic thing I was born with.
Yeah.
And they denied it.
Yeah.
So the system, I'm really critical of the system.
Yeah.
And I find that it is actually the opposite. I find that they will do anything to kill you
Mm-hmm.
and to not have to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Denying somebody disability who's been on it for genetic disorder is insane.
Yeah.
But it happened to me, and it's happening to all my friends because they don't want to pay.
Sure.
My prescription coverage got taken away.
Right.
And now I owe fees. I would say things have gotten worse for me, actually, in terms of the systems that are supposed to support me. It's actually gotten worse.
It's really kind of horrifying.
Yeah, it's actually, if I did not have my loved ones and my community, I don't think I'd be dead yet. I really think it's all spirit in me. But I would have had no food stamps,
Right.
no insurance.
Right.
I still have no money. And it's my disabled friends and like my chronically ill friends and like my loved ones that are picking up the slack for what we pay taxes for. So I would say no. It's been actually really negative, and it has gotten worse.
Wow.
It's gotten worse. Sorry, guys.
No, I mean it's good to hear it. To know that that's happening. I
wish I was getting better.
I hope that will change.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
There's no positive spin on it other than also, but it is positive to share it and be like,
Sure.
this is not working. You need to look at alternative. Why? I mean, the healthcare system of America is GoFundMe.
Yeah.
That's our insurance.
It really is.
And that's
really
where I would have had to be if I didn't have other people helping me right now. And I think I've said it, but it's like it's my loved ones that keep me alive.
Right.
And no system.
Yeah.
And I actually really hope to employ me, somebody. I'm looking. And it's unfortunately that is what I feel will save me is both the support of my loved ones and getting back into the workforce.
Right.
And hopefully a way that doesn't give me COVID.
Right.
Which is a huge barrier. And so I think the systems have gotten worse. I think COVID has obviously the systems that protected us from COVID have long been gone. And so it does make me feel more connected to my community. I also am fortunate to have friends all around the world.
Sure.
That's crazy to be able to say that. I have friends in the UK, in Spain, that know what I'm going through. And so I have through this period of being prior, because now I am housing secure, which is really fun and cool. But before, when I wasn't, I did not actually feel alone, which is really powerful. I didn't feel alone, and that's what keeps you alive. And that's what kills you is feeling alone.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that.
Yeah.
I just didn't have enough food or a good home.
Yeah. I don't mean to laugh.
It is funny.
Yeah.
It is funny now because I'm alive and I have a home and I have food. But yeah, the systems are worse. So lean into your community, ask for help, be vulnerable, and also accept the help that people want to give you.
Sure.
That's a really hard one. I think we are forced to be independent as disabled people, and we don't ask for help because we are treated poorly when we do, or it's thrown in our face.
Sure.
So this has also been because the systems have let me down. I've had to really exercise trust.
Yeah.
Which is a lifelong
Look, I'll say even as an able-bodied person, it's very difficult to ask for help.
Absolutely.
It's just
we are an individualized society.
Yep.
And that's bad, and we should be doing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 It's one of the things that's great about America, but it's
Right.
also one of the things that's really messed up about America.
It's hard
You know?
because like I'm like as an individual, a lot of this work I did do on my own. Yet if it is through community and a publisher and multiple people
Yeah.
that help get it off the ground.
Yeah.
So you really no one does anything alone. No
nobody
one does
does.
anything
Yeah.
good alone.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
One kind of last question here
Yeah.
on the book. I'm just curious because you have a whole chapter on cannabis.
Mm.
Has your experience in that at least changed since you've come to California versus being on the East Coast where there's a lot of barriers very clearly, and here
It's great.
it's easy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I worked. Yeah, I don't talk about it in here because I think if I do write anything else about me, I might do dispensary diaries because I did work at a dispo for 6 years, and so I was really inundated with the barriers. I was even the medical program in New Jersey 8 or 9 years ago only allowed folks with cancer, and they deserve it too, but so do I. And so that was something that was hard to get through. And so I actually saw it change both as a patient and then also working in the industry. And in terms of like my usage, I also, I reflected a lot about how because in the East Coast, cannabis was not widely accessible, people relied on pain medicine. And while I do use pain medicine and that is active in my care, it feels really healthily mitigated because I have cannabis. And I think that that's something that maybe people in California are able to help avoid. Not all, I'm sure people do use pain medicine here, but because you can actually just go and get it right away, you don't have to have a consultation,
Right.
and there are no barriers, and that is really freeing. I will say, I think the cannabis here in California, I'm a high tolerance patient. I think it's a little too strong. I think it's because I think it's kind of like, and I have a high tolerance.
Sure.
But I think it's like so strong that we do lose a little bit of that medical, and you can kind of feel like that's really all I have to say about it. I think it's a little strong for some of my day-to-day needs.
Sure.
And which says a lot because I smoke a lot.
Yeah.
But I also think that I'd rather have it this way.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it too strong and too much access.
Yeah.
And then I can kind of taper from there. It's also still expensive.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a barrier as well.
You can get it cheaper. You can actually get it weaker too. If you go to a good dispensary.
If you really
here.
check it out.
Yeah.
And I think I have good plugs now.
Yeah.
People help me. But generally, I mean, it's so.
I mean, they want to sell you the super strong $80 stuff,
That's
but
fair.
like,
You
no,
don't
I'd rather
actually
have
do
the $30 stuff.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's true. I actually maybe it's also a consumer issue. Maybe it's my focus. But I think it's only been positive for patients. I think it, in terms of my usage, that's actually the same, which is cool. Having more access to it has not increased my usage. If anything, it might have decreased my usage because I am picking the stronger stuff, and then I don't need as much of it. I think the most positive too is the relief aspect.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it. If I need it, I can get it.
Yeah.
I can order it to my damn house.
Yeah.
The barrier is often the money.
Yeah.
And the people are nice. And I have experience as in a dispo, so I don't feel out of the loop. New Jersey is recreational now, but it's so expensive, and they have a lot of limitations. But cannabis is a huge part of the book.
Even right there on the cover, you know?
Because I smoked a lot making it. And I will always probably smoke weed unless something happens to me that prevents me from smoking it. And I don't think it will. I love weed. I love my friends. I love comics.
Nice. So what are you working on now? What else you got going?
While I worked on that,
Yeah.
I also was commissioned to do a children's book. So I finished that. Ironically, that was due, and I will get, but it was needed to be submitted the morning I got let go from my job, and then had to break my lease and lose my home. Is when the children's book was due. So it was due, and they had asked me like an hour after that happened, and I was very unwell. I was like, the fear is stuck. I can still feel that fear.
Yeah.
And they were like, could you go on your computer real quick and just add a mask to one of the characters?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time in my life I had to say no,
Mm-hmm.
because I was in crisis. Had just moved into this new place, and we won't talk about the roaches and the animal waste that was there and all the problems before that in the apartment. And it was all getting taken care of, only to then lose it.
Right.
And have to move into a really, really bad place for a while, in another state within a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was due that day. And I called them, and I was the publisher, and I was like, I'm sorry, my computer's packed. I'm leaving in crisis. And they also were like, okay, where do we say you are from in the book? Like, do we say Midwest? Because that's when you worked on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we say New Jersey?
Mm-hmm.
And that's so fucked up. That's so hard for my brain. I'm like, Midwest, but I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing here. I worked a lot of it on this book in Ohio. I worked a lot of it in New Jersey first, then Ohio, then back in New Jersey, and then here in the Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also a conversation of like, where do we put?
Right.
And now I'm living in the Bay, and that feels cool to say it here.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of what I'm working on now, I was working on that first book for the children's book. It's called The Scooter Twins.
Okay.
It is written by a disabled adoptee. So she's also
nice.
adopted.
Okay.
She's a senior citizen. And self-identified. She is that, but she identifies her as well as being like, I'm a senior citizen.
Uh-huh.
And she is a wheelchair user, and she wrote this children's book for about 2 kids getting mobility scooters.
Yeah.
And there was a call for disabled illustrators, physically disabled illustrators from the publishing house. And I was like, that's me. And I waited probably like half a year to hear back.
Mm-hmm.
And then they picked me up for it. So I worked on that in combination with working on this.
Mm-hmm.
That I 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, I just got an offer to do the second book.
Oh, nice.
So it's going to be the Scooter Twins,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's also like more about these kids' lives using their mobility scooters, the inaccessibility they face,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really fun. That's kind of between that and a children's book. That's very dream commission. I'm getting to be. I love that this is done, and now I get to do something like not heavily conceptual. I don't have to write it.
Right.
Didn't write a single word.
Yeah.
And it also falls in line with that similar relationship that I talked about earlier in school.
Yeah.
That my teachers didn't understand.
Sure.
Being like, you need to write all the books that you participate in. I'm like, no, I do not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so being an actual children's book illustrator and having that cemented,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm doing a second book, that title feels really real to me. I feel like I'm proving my teachers, not wrong in a mean way, but being like, this is a relationship you guys didn't know about,
Yeah.
and I'm living that industry life.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that now.
Yeah.
I just
And that's an illustrated children's book,
Yeah,
right? Like you're
yeah.
not doing comics, you're just doing
although
spot
I'm
illus.
gonna be real, I really wish I could include
Yeah.
some comic concepts in it.
Mhm.
And I did try in the first book. I did try and add some paneling,
Mhm.
and they were so sweet, and I love them as a house so much. But they were just like, we don't really do that. Yeah, we don't really do that for children's books. This is for like 6 to 8 year olds.
Right.
And I do disagree
Mhm.
in my own way. I feel like there's actually a lot of, I think you can expand what children think.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, I think it would have been exciting to add concepts about the environment in a small panel. So like if I'm drawing the scooter, maybe like a small panel in the corner of like the size of a flower by the scooter wheel.
Right.
And you're getting a sense of scale,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But they don't want that, and I hear you,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that. And I also think that there's an opportunity eventually for me to write my own children's book
Sure.
that includes these concepts
Yeah.
that I can see.
Yeah.
But it feels good to be saying, yeah, I'm working on another book.
Yeah.
And
how about more comics? Do you have intention to do anything?
No, not right now. I really want a job. For
For
real. I really want, because I did have a job. And I really want to stabilize my life on an adult level.
Sure.
Even though I am very much one, all the things like housing and job are not concrete for me.
Yeah.
And I actually don't want to write another comics right now.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have that and then work. It was really traumatic to work on comics while being homeless.
I bet.
And it also felt like, I've talked about this before, but and the events really helped bring forward that this was very important. Like, if not to like other people, it is important to me, and it has not always felt that important to me.
Yeah.
Because I have been in crisis.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this story. First of all, I spent 10 years with this, and y'all are just seeing it now. So it's new and it's expansive. To me, this is old news.
Yeah.
And so I am not as interested in it.
Sure.
It feels like almost, until I started doing more events and like I've had interviews and I had to market it. But before, it kind of felt like a joke. Like, how am I putting out a damn book? I'm living outside with roaches.
Yeah.
Like, how is this important?
Well, it is.
I know that. But because
it
I
is,
wasn't,
and it's beautiful, and it's really good.
do you know what I'm saying?
No, I do know what you're saying.
Your brain is like, you can't focus on this because it's not bringing you a home.
Sure.
And it's like, it never was gonna.
Yeah.
I never wrote it for that.
Yeah.
Never. And
but I was hopeful that it would go the other way around. That this book would go on and sell 100,000 copies,
it will, though.
and then you'll never have to work again because you can just make art.
It's giving fun home.
That would
fun,
be
right.
That's what I would hope. That's what I would hope.
I really want.
Yeah.
But also I'm like, my friends are here. My friends who came to my last one.
Yeah.
That's the most rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been talking for quite a while now. We're at 90 minutes, if you can believe that. It doesn't feel like 90 minutes, right? I love conversations like this where it's breezy and easy and sweet. But we start and end in the same place. So the last question is the same at every show as well. And it's, as I was telling you before, this is something like our 250th interview, somewhere in that range. And so one of the things that, because it's a series of interviews about comics, we definitely get a lot of people who say that they want to make comics, that they want to do comics. And then but I'm no good.
Oh,
and I have imposter syndrome. I don't know that I have anything valid to say. I mean, you said you were struggling with that yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm like, why do you feel that way?
Exactly.
Right.
So from that point of view, what would be the piece of advice that you would give to this person who's 20 years old and they've got ideas, they've got things to say, but they're just not sure of their ability to do it, or if they should do it, or how they should do it? And it can be something emotional, it can be something philosophical, it can be something technical, be any way you'd like to do it. But I'd love to hear what your advice would be for that person.
I'll start with the simple: do it, do it, and do it. Me looking at the camera, do it, and you can. And I guess also hearing other people, like, it's okay to share your doubts about your creative process with people that you feel safe doing that. It's okay to say, this doesn't seem like anything, right? This doesn't seem like a story. Because that's how I found more confidence in like talking to people, especially people low-key who are not in comics. Because of course the people in comics are going to be like, yeah, you can do it, as they should. But it's like more so the people that are not in comics that I'm kind of like excited to see that they see my vision. because I know my comics friends get it. I know when I say, like, is this a story? They're already putting the narrative together.
Yep.
But it's almost more revealing to have somebody who doesn't have that narrative lens be like, no, this seems like a story. It makes me feel like I'm really reaching a larger audience. I'm doing it for more than just my intimate community. I don't like when I think of this. This wasn't because I wanted it to be for just comic readers. It was really for my disabled friends, who are often not comic creators. So I would say, my advice would be, one, to do it, and two, to lean into your community in terms of getting that support. Because they're going to see your vision. As long as they're your friends and you feel safe with them, they don't need to be artists at all. I think that can even be limiting. Ask your artist friends, especially on a technical level. That I think is really, when you're getting more into the work, on a technical level, it can be really helpful to ask your technically trained friends and not. But in terms of feeling confident, just ask your community, and they're going to give you that support. And that's what happened for me.
Nice. Nice. Beautiful. I love that. I think that's a great answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much. No, not just for this conversation, but seriously, thank you for making this book. It's powerful. It's important. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. The whole book, if you're sitting at home, the whole book is in this watercolor style. And it's gorgeous. You work all digitally?
Both. So I start traditionally. I'll sketch it, and then the paint strokes itself are scanned actual paint strokes that I then converted into a Photoshop brush.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's digital with as much of me that I could make traditional transition.
Because I would have purely guessed that this was hand drawn and not. It looks very much that. So beautiful stuff. Yeah, no, it's really, 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 really good. So thank you. And I, regardless of what you're saying, I do hope to see more comics from you over the next couple of years. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Let me do a little housekeeping here. I'm gonna look at the camera. Look at this camera now?
Period.
Hi, now I'm looking at this camera. Hi, camera. Hey, you at home. This is really weird when I don't have the screen in front of me. I can't see you. So thanks for listening. You're sitting at home. You want to read something that's really good, really thoughtful, really strong, really important. I absolutely recommend Brittle Joints. It is such a strong and powerful book. You could certainly buy a copy from us if you chose, but if you don't, go and buy it from your local comic shop. Go and get it from the library. Our copies all come with signed book plates, which is really nice. And looks like there were 2 or 3 of these at least that
different styles.
So that you're going to get a different one every time. So you might want to buy 3 copies. There's a button you can press there. It's on the screen. I'm sure they're doing it. So get this, read this. I need to make a couple thank yous. I want to thank Jordan, my producer, who does a bunch of stuff that nobody sees other than me, but I could not do the show without him. I want to thank Ben, who was running the cameras and doing all the setup, which, again, I couldn't do it without him. I want to thank my staff. Boy, do I want to thank my staff. Zoe and Kat and Katie, the kids, Chrissy and Max. They let me do this. I wouldn't be able to have these conversations and put all this time into talking to cartoonists if it wasn't for them doing all the work. And so, I really, really appreciate them. I really appreciate all of you who are watching. Subscribe, hit the little bell thing. If you're not a member, though, that's fine too. I appreciate you watching. But join the club because you get really good books every single month and, great conversations. And you keep a really cool comic shop going. Which I think is important. And the last one I want to thank is I want to thank the creators. I want to thank creators like Maria, because if it wasn't for creators making comics, this would be a giant store full of blank books, which would really suck to have
Right.
just blank books in here, you know.
So many sketchbooks.
Right, yeah, exactly.
To make
exactly.
comics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you and thank everybody. Here's the next 2 shows. The next one that's coming up will be the next Kids Club. It's going to be Emma Hunzinger, and the book is How It All Ends. This is really a good kids book. It's very dense. It's you know, maybe a little older than the last couple of books that we've done, but I think you're really going to appreciate that. And then the next adult club is Rare Flavors. Ram V and Felipe Andrade. I almost certainly pronounced that wrong because until I get them and talk to them. Oh, it's a gorgeous book. Yeah.
Printing.
Yeah, no, and it's about a chef and a demon. Oh, it's really it's like a Rakshasha who's the next Anthony Bourdain. That's the premise of the comic. Rare Flavors. So that's next month's book. So look for that. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of the Graphic Novel of the Month Club. If you enjoyed what you were watching, please subscribe and hit that bell up in the top corner. If you enjoyed the books that we're talking about and the creators that we're talking to, every month we pick a brand new book. The staff votes on it. It's a program that helps keep our store alive, and we'd love to have you as a member. You'll get a new book every month. Just follow that URL at the bottom of the screen.